What is up, Starseeds? I'm Sid, and today we are going to be talking about constellations. Now, this topic has been on my list of videos to do since before I published my first YouTube video. This was on the original list of topics that I had considered making videos on, but I haven't done a video about constellations yet. Yeah, we talk about astrology. I've even done a video on apps for astronomy, but I haven't talked about the constellations really. Sure, we get into zodiac signs, but that's different. That's not these other constellations. Yeah, we talk about aliens and these other star systems, but I'm not really focusing on how the constellations became constellations, which I'm so fascinated with. Think, you're a human before technology, before society, really even. What do you have? Whatever's beneath your feet. You've got grass, sand, whatever it is. You've got the trees, plants, animals, other people around you. But the thing that we all have in common as humans on Earth, regardless of, all of the clutter of modern day life, you look up at the night sky, without light pollution, you see stars. You can see planets, you can see asteroids, you can see whatever the heck else, but you see stars. I want to talk about some early records of just humans being fascinated with the night sky in general though, and then we'll get more into constellations. There's two really cool stories I heard about. The first one I want to talk about is in France, modern day France, but I believe it was Germany back in the day. November 7th, 1492, in a wheat field, there was a meteor that landed. The people in the town chained it to the church so it wouldn't fly away like how it flew there. At least that's the myth behind it. But this meteor was chained to a church for years. It's now in a museum because people kept kind of picking part of the meteor off because they wanted some for themselves, and the meteor kept shrinking in size due to people picking it off. But now this ancient meteor is in a museum in France if you guys want to check it out. I just thought the reaction to a meteor landing was pretty interesting. The second story takes place in 1504 on Christopher Columbus's third voyage, allegedly. Him and his crew were stranded in what is now modern-day Jamaica, and they were facing starvation. They needed to get food, supplies from the local people. So what does Columbus do? He uses his knowledge of astronomy and knows that an eclipse is coming up. So he goes to the people and he says, hey, my God needs you to give us food. If you don't listen, my God is going to make your moon turn red and all of this weird stuff. And at first the people were like, no, like you come here threatening us? No, we're not helping you. Your God can do whatever he wants to do. We don't believe you. Well, then the eclipse starts happening and the people kind of freak out a bit. They're like, wow, maybe this guy really has connection with some god that can affect our moon like this. So they say, okay, we're gonna help you. And Christopher Columbus says, hang on, I'll talk to my God, I'll think about it. I'll think about having him stop harming your moon. Give me a minute and we'll talk. So Christopher Columbus goes and he waits. He turns over, an hourglass or something, watches the time go by. And once the eclipse has passed totality a little bit, then he comes back out and he says, okay, I talked with my God. He is going to give you your moon back in exchange for you helping us. And then slowly but surely the eclipse passes and the people were fooled by Christopher Columbus. He's a fucking asshole, but a resourceful asshole nonetheless. Since humans came to be, obviously we have been studying the night sky, the stars. That's what we mainly see out there, right? As a quick little side note, whether or not you believe in space, whether or not you believe we're in some matrix and the stars are projections, I don't even really know. I've done a video on, if they are, how what I talk about is still accurate. Anyways, if stars are Horcruxes, I'll leave that video linked in the description of this video. Regardless of that, it means something. Whether or not they're natural, whether or not they're man-made, whatever your definition of that might be, there's these lights up there. And yeah, whatever shape you see in them, it's like looking at the clouds, to be honest. You can see whatever shape you want to see, whatever connections from these different stars you want to see. And I'll get into this in this video as well as future videos on constellations because I hope to do more in the future because there is so much information here. But obviously different cultures had different constellations, okay? There's the Chinese constellations, which are pretty different. Some of them are the same constellations that we use, the 88 that the IAU, International Astronomical Union, Union claimed are the 88 constellations. Some of those constellations are the same that the Hawaiians thought of, that the Chinese thought of, that these other cultures around the world thought of. But a lot of them are different, or they have a different interpretation of the same kind of star group. You can see whatever you want to see when you look up at the night sky. You don't have to go by these constellations, but I think it's interesting, the 88 that, are official now, the ancient 48, in which all of them are included in the modern 88, which we'll get into in a few minutes. My point is, we've been studying the night sky in different ways throughout all of these different cultures for as long as we have existed. I want to read you guys some notes that I compiled, so I'm going to look at my computer here. Constellations as we know them are a product of human observation and imagination, arising from ancient cultures identifying patterns in the night sky and assigning them names and stories. So here are some other things that the new Google AI thing kind of compiled for us. Early human observation, people in various cultures from ancient times looked at the night sky and noticed patterns formed by groups of stars. Cultural interpretations, these patterns became associated with stories, myths, and beliefs, with different cultures assigning different names and meaning to the same constellations, or maybe slightly different constellations depending on the culture. Examples of ancient constellations, many of the constellations we recognize today, like Orion, Gemini, Pegasus, have their origins in ancient Greek and Roman mythology. Zodiac, the constellations along the ecliptic, the path the sun appears to follow, which we talk about a lot in my astrology playlist, are known as the zodiac, and their origins can be traced back to Babylonian and Chaldean astronomy. The Babylons developed 12 astrological signs, some of which were later incorporated into the Western zodiac. However, it was the ancient Greeks who named these 12 star signs after constellations and linked them to specific dates based on their alignment with the sun's orbit. I don't think I realized until now that the 12 zodiac signs were identified very early on in the study of astronomy, which makes sense because they are the 12 constellations on the ecliptic. But it's believed that the ancient Sumerians who lived in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq area, are the ones who first discovered this. Sure, there might have been people in other countries who did this as well about the same time, if not even before, but this is really the first record we have of it. Now, these early Mesopotamian constellations are believed to have been based on religious or ritual traditions, obviously, because everything is spiritual and these ancient people knew that. Then the Greeks step in and they kind of further develop these Mesopotamian constellations. They add their own names to it, their own stories to them, hence the Greek mythology. Some other early records, more so of the mythology of these constellations. Obviously, Homer talked about them in the Iliad and the Odyssey, but there's records before this. This is, before 700 BC. We talked about records 3000 BC, but once you flash forward to, 700 BC, around the time of these epic poems is when you really start seeing these stories and the mythology of it, mainly the Greek influence, really come to life. Then Ptolemy comes along from Alexandria, Egypt, ancient Kemet. He creates this work, the Almagest, with the 48 ancient constellations out of these 1022 cataloged stars. Claudius Ptolemaeus of Alexandria wrote this Almagest, this book that became the blueprint for further studies of constellations. It compiled the original ancient 48 constellations. Sure, like I said, all of these other cultures have their own forms of constellations and star groupings, but Ptolemy's work, the Almagest, was written in the year 150. So Islamic and European astronomers used the Almagest as kind of the foundation of constellation study until the 17th century. Fun fact, the Almagest was actually first printed in the year 1515. Over time, astronomers add more stars, more constellations to these star catalogs, mainly in the southern hemisphere, because originally there was all of these constellations for the northern hemisphere, but not so much the southern hemisphere, because all of these people in Asia, in Europe, in northern Africa, they're in the northern hemisphere. Fast forward drastically to 1922, the International Astronomical Union, IAU, officially recognizes 88 constellations. I also want to make it clear the stars in these constellations aren't actually close together physically. They're close together from how we see them on Earth. okay? It's kind of like how I've said before in other videos, if you were looking at our star, the sun, and Sirius and Vega from a different point in space, you would think our stars are super close together. You would think we're probably in a constellation together. So the constellations we see, these, 88 or ancient 48 or whatever ones you want to kind of create yourself, that's how we're seeing them from Earth. That's how we see that star's light from Earth. It's all about our perception of the stars, okay? They're not actually close together. These stars that are in the same constellations, they could be light years and light years apart. A constellation that I believe to be very ancient because it contains the ancient star of Arcturus, which is a very powerful star and I believe is a stargate, the constellation Bootes. It's thought to be one of the oldest constellations with depictions in the sky lore of China, Egypt, Greece, and many other cultures. I thought that was really cool. There are ancient Chinese and ancient Egyptian sky maps that are different from these modern ones that we use. The modern ones that we use are based in Roman and Greek astronomy, so I would love to deep dive more into specifically these Chinese sky maps and these ancient Egyptian sky maps. Some constellations that other cultures saw different were the Navajo. They saw Orion as the first slender one, whereas this Greek influence sees Orion as the hunter. In Japanese culture, the star Betelgeuse represents a legendary war between two families, which if you guys know anything about Orion, Betelgeuse as well as these other stars, that's kind of interesting that in Japanese culture, this star in Orion represents, a legendary war, because there was legendary wars in Orion, the constellation which Betelgeuse is in. Now, in Indian culture, the constellation Capricorn, which Greek influence is this sea goat, water goat, something like that. They see an antelope. That makes a lot more sense. I've seen antelope, but I haven't seen sea goats. Also, I was kind of wondering why when you look up certain stars, it has, these weird Greek letters. They're called Bayer letters, and they refer to Johann Bayer in 1603 when he developed this system using Greek letters to designate stars within a constellation. So when you think of stars like Alpha Centauri or Tau Ceti, the Alpha, the Tau, things like that, that is, a Greek letter, and it identifies how bright that star is and things like that. He was a German lawyer and astronomer, and he developed this system. So now I want to talk about the original 48 constellations in Ptolemy's work, the Almagest. So Andromeda, the princess Andromeda of Ethiopia, ? Aquarius, the water bearer. Aquila, the eagle. Ara, I think is how you pronounce it, the altar. Argo Navis, the ship. Now, Argo Navis we're going to talk about later in this video because this is the one constellation in the ancient 48 that is not in the modern 88, and it's because instead of having this constellation Argo, it got broken up into 3 different constellations. So that's the only one that's not in it, but really it is if you include those 3 that make this one up. So Argo Navis, Aries the ram, Auriga the charioteer, Bootes the herdsman, Cancer the crab, Canis major, the greater dog, Canis minor, the lesser dog, Capricorn, the sea goat, Cassiopeia, the queen, Andromeda's mother. Also want to point out that Andromeda and Cassiopeia tend to go hand in hand, not only when you're talking about astronomy, but also when you're talking about extraterrestrials. Centaurus, the centaur. Cephas, the king, Cassiopeia's husband. Satis, the sea monster or the whale. Corona Australis, the southern crown, and Corona Borealis, the northern crown. Corvus, the crow. Crater, the cup. Cygnus, the swan. Delphinus, the dolphin. Draco, the dragon. Aquilus, the little horse or foal. Eridanus, like the Eridanus River. Gemini, the twins. Hercules, the hero, Hercules. Hydra, the water snake, which I do believe I'm going to do a video in the very near future on Hydra and my kind of theory on Mayans ascending to Hydra. Anyways, Leo, the lion. Lapis, the hare or rabbit. Libra, the scales. Lupus, the wolf, not to be confused with Lapis, the hare, although I do think I have been confusing the two and meshing them together for the longest time, but this makes a lot more sense. All right, Lyra, the lyre, or like the harp musical instrument. Ophacius, the serpent bearer. Orion, the hunter. Pegasus, the Pegasus in mythology that was birthed from Medusa's head. Perseus, the hero who chopped off Medusa's head. Pisces, the fish. Pisces, Austranus, the southern fish. Sagitta, the arrow. Sagittarius, the archer. Scorpius, the scorpion, and Scorpius and Orion are placed on opposite sides of the sky because the scorpion was set out to take down Orion the hunter, and now they're on opposite sides of the sky. There's also legends that, you know, the scorpion protects this side of the sky and Orion the hunter protects that side of the sky. Take that for what you will. There's lots of different cultures' interpretations of it. Serpens, the snake. Taurus, the bull. Triangulum, the triangle. Ursa Major, the great bear. Ursa Minor, the little bear. Like the story of Zeus, Callisto, and their child. Callisto is the great bear and their child is the little bear. Hera did not like that Zeus had, you know, a child with this mortal woman. Long story short, they're now constellations. And last but not least, Virgo, the virgin. So those are the ancient 48 constellations. We talked a little bit about Argo, the ship of Jason and the Argonauts from Greek mythology, but because of its large size and the number of stars in it, it was divided into 3 different constellations later. So those 3 constellations are Carina represents the keel of the ship, Pupus represents the ship's deck, the poop deck, and Vela represents the sail. So now let's look at these other modern constellations in addition to those ancient 48. So we have Antilla, which is an air pump, Apis, bird of paradise, Calum, the chisel, Camelopardalis, the giraffe, wow, that was a mouthful, Canis venatici, hunting dogs, Carina, the keel of the ship from Argo, Chameleon, which is a chameleon, Circinus, a compass drafting tool, Columba, the dove, Coma Bernice, which is Bernice's hair, Crux, the Southern Cross, Dorado, the dolphin fish, Fornax, which is a furnace, Grus, which is a cane, Horologium, which is a pendulum clock, Hydrus, which is the lesser water snake, Indus, which is an Indian, Lacerta, which is a lizard, Leo Minor, the lesser lion, Lynx, the lynx, Mensa, which is a table mountain, Microscopium, which is a microscope, Monoceros, which is a unicorn, Monoceros, Musca, which is a fly, Norma, which is a level, Octans, which is an octant, I'm pretty sure that's like a scientific tool, Pava, which is a peacock, Phoenix, the phoenix, Pictor, which is an easel, Pupus, which is the poop deck of the ship Argo, Pyxis, which is a mariner's compass, Reticulum, which is a rectal, which I think is a scientific tool, Sculptor, which is a sculptor, Scutum, which is a shield, Sextans, which is a sextant, a scientific tool, Telescopium, which is a telescope, it's like 2 stars, like a little line, telescope, Triangulum, Australe, which is the southern triangle, Tucana, which is a toucan, Vela, which is the sails of the ship Argo, Vulcans, which is a flying fish, and last but not least, Vulpecula the fox, one of my favorites. I really love the ancient 48, but out of these, you know, modern ones added to it, Vulpecula is definitely my favorite. Also the Phoenix, Crux, I mean, those ones are cool. So I would absolutely love to do more videos on constellations, maybe the mythology behind them, maybe just more in depth about the stars in each constellation, more of the science behind it. We'll definitely get into more of the spirituality behind it and what I'm picking up on for these star systems. Like I said, a video on Hydra is to come in the near future. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was just the beginning of us talking about constellations together. So I hope you have an amazing day. Until next time, peace out.